Welcome in to Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Bradley Stalder, and tonight I'll be drafting live on the FFWC's the Superflex Bowl. It's a great time to be drafting. I'm excited to get into the Superflex format. It is the first time that the FFWC, the full-time fantasy, is going to be is having their Superflex draft, and naturally we want to be drafting quarterbacks higher in these Superflex drafts. So that's going to be the strategy I'm going to attack with this FFWC Superflex Bowl here on May 20th, 9 p.m. start time. So we'll get started here in about 9 minutes. There are a few things you need to know about this draft. Of course, because it's Superflex, you can start not just one quarterback, but also a second. And looking at your starting rosters, looking at the league, let me pull up the settings here, league settings. Okay. And rules and scoring. So this was a $50 entry, $25,000 in playoff prizes. The grand prize is $5,000 plus the Superflex Championship belt. And then 1 in 6 win not only $100, not only their $50 back, but another $50. There are a total of 600 teams that you're competing against in this tournament. The scoring is the same as the regular FFWC. After 14 weeks, the top 2 scoring teams advance per league to week 15 for a total of 100. Advancing teams will compete for a 3-week point total championship, entering their season average from weeks 1 to 14. The top 2 scorers in each league after 14 weeks are guaranteed at least $100 in prizes. And there are both slow drafts and fast drafts for this Superflex Bowl. Okay, and some of the scoring: yards passing divided by 20, 4 points for every passing touchdown. Typical 10 points or 1 point for every 10 yards, either receiving or rushing, 6 points for rushing and receiving touchdowns, 2 points for conversions. It's a full PPR for wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. And I don't believe there are any defense or special teams. No. So it's a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, no kicker or defense, plus 2 flex players, but one of those is a super flex position that can be a quarterback. In these types of leagues, you want to get your rushing quarterbacks, but also Josh Allen's probably going to go 101. And in this league, I don't have the 101. Instead, I have the 105. And at that position, the 5th quarterback going off the board right now is Kyler Murray per FFWC's ADP. Okay. First, Josh Allen, then Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, 1 through 4, and then Kyler Murray at 66. So looking at some of the quarterbacks, their rankings, I would be comfortable. Of course, Josh Allen's going to be the first one off the board, but then Patrick Mahomes I have him projected for being the quarterback 2, but Justin Herbert right behind him at the quarterback 3. And I think even, in fact, Justin Herbert is a better value. So I don't know if Justin Herbert will be able to get back to me, but he's going as the quarterback 2 right now. Lamar Jackson, I would be happy if he fell. Even Kyler Murray would be a good value, although I might wait for Jalen Hurts, although Hurts is going as the quarterback 7 right now. I don't know if he'll make it to the second round for me. It's an awkward spot to be at the 1-5 because you don't get a top tier quarterback, but you do get, and you don't get like a top tier second quarterback. I like being at the turns for these types of drafts, like the 111 or 112 or at the 101, because then you're guaranteed Josh Allen, and then you can just pick up value at the 2-3 turn. Whereas if you're stuck at the 105, 108, like you're hoping that someone falls to you. Like I'm okay taking Kyler Murray at the 1-5, but there still are questions. So I'm interested in seeing where this draft will take us, who will take the Superflex seriously. And also, this is a start 3 wide receiver. In Underdog Superflex contest from a couple months ago, pre-draft, there were only 2 wide receivers. So yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting wrinkle because you need to start 2 quarterbacks. But in this type of format, you'll want to get your hands on these wide receivers fast. Okay, so I could see quarterbacks and wide receivers going up very fast. I wouldn't be surprised if, in fact, I punt the tight end position, and heck, I might even just go 0 RB in this draft as well. Make sure that I've got some studs at wide receiver, get some 0 RB candidates, and then fill in the rest. I might go a fragile build with wide receiver and just hope, because it's PPR, that those running backs might be able to fill in if they're hitting. So we'll see what the plan is. There are 3 minutes until the start of this draft. And yeah, I'll probably be taking Kyler Murray here. I would not be taking Joe Burrow at the 105. That is a massive mistake. And in fact, Joe Burrow was one of the players that I've identified. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are being overdrafted and overvalued in these drafts. For instance, Joe Burrow, I have him projected after Kyler Murray pretty significantly, but also looking at the running or the quarterbacks around him, I'd probably take Russell Wilson at ADP over Joe Burrow. Tom Brady is a better value. Jalen Hurts. I think that all of those quarterbacks are better values than Joe Burrow. Plus, you're going to have to pay a premium to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on your team. It's going to be tough to get those stacks working for you. Just so dang expensive. And Joe Burrow doesn't give you the upside that you think he does. Like looking over the last couple of years, Joe Burrow, yeah, his 3-year quarterback win rate. So over the last 2 years, because he was only played 2 years, his quarterback win rate over the last 2 years is only 24.6%. And I define quarterback win rate as scoring 22 or more fantasy points at the quarterback position. 24.6%. He tore his ACL. That's tough. Yeah, it's a tough break, but he came back last year in 2021 and only had a 27% win rate. Compare that to Justin Herbert, who's getting 47% win rates, or Tom Brady, 52% win rate last year. Jalen Hurts, 45% win rate. Heck, even Dak Prescott was at a 46% win rate. Stafford was at a 45% win rate. So these are quarterbacks going a lot later who are more likely to get you that 22 plus point. Even Aaron Rodgers last season, 46.9% win rate. Okay. And even scrolling even down even further at the quarterbacks, yeah, it falls off pretty quickly, but like you want your 2 quarterbacks to be, I think the cutoff for me, if you can get Kirk Cousins as your second quarterback, I think you're in good shape in these types of drafts. But other than, yeah, I want to get my 2 quarterbacks in by Kirk Cousins, and Cousins is going off after Derek Carr. Yeah, so Cousins right now is going as the 16th quarterback off the board. I'm really happy if Kirk Cousins is my starting quarterback. Okay, it looks like we are just about ready. So let's get this party started. Awesome. My boy RJ is on the clock, and he takes Josh Allen, no surprise, 101 here. It is a 1-minute clock, and this will update here in just a second. Refresh. There we go. And we see Josh Allen go off the board. We're waiting for the 102. And Justin Herbert, as I said before, is being pegged as the 102 in these full-time fantasy drafts. It's going to be interesting to see where the other position players fall, given that it's a start 3 wide receiver. So you need to be hammering quarterback and wide receiver very early. Justin Herbert goes as the 102, no surprise. And then Monkey Pox at the 103. Mahomes is pegged as the 103, so we'll see if that becomes a reality. This is also a 20-round draft. You can take some shots later on maybe a Tyrod Taylor, given the injury history of Daniel Jones, but Mahomes does go off at the 1-3. I'm up after the 1-4, and it's going to be a decision for Always Smooth. At the 104, do you go Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow? 30 seconds remain. And we'll see who if Lamar Jackson is there, I don't need to stack him pretty heavily. Maybe Rashad Bateman, but I'll make Mark Andrews a priority. And it's Tom Brady at the 104. Wow. Okay. So I feel like I'm drafting all of the Lamar Jackson here. Let me update the board. Okay. I have so much Lamar Jackson. You know what? I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, and I'm gonna put Jalen Hurts is my pick here at the 105. And the reason why I like Jalen Hurts at the 105, he is a long shot for the MVP. I was listening to Establish the Run this morning, and Levitan and Silva are all saying that the Eagles, good things are happening. This team is set up in a good way. The reality is that Jalen Hurts, if he can even take a small step forward, look out. He already had last year a 45.5% win rate. This could be a Lamar Jackson 2019 season where he goes hog wild. The Eagles brought in AJ Brown on the cheap, and his contract isn't cheap, but you've got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders out of the backfield, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You signed James Bradbury. This is a team that will be competing for a long time. Okay, after Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson goes off the board, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow at the 108. Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott are still on the board. That's interesting to me. I'm surprised that is the case. We do see Kyler Murray go off at the 1-9. And pegging it out, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. If quarterbacks continue to go off the board, and they won't, because Jonathan Taylor goes as the 110 in this draft, behind Joe Burrow, behind Kyler Murray, Jonathan Taylor instead is the value here at the 110. I think that's a great pick. It's a zigzag moment because I do Dak and Russell Wilson in these types of formats. They're still quarterback ones. Christian McCaffrey at the 111. And it looks like maybe the likes of Kirk Cousins may make it back to me. I would be comfortable with Cousins. He's probably the end of that tier for me. After the Chicago Bears did not do much with the wide receiver core, and Velus Jones, his player profiler comp is Van Jefferson, not the type of player that you would hope to be your wide receiver 2 behind Darnell Mooney. And Mooney isn't a great pick either. Jalen Hurts, at least I've got some stackable pieces with that. I don't know what's going to be better for me going with Goddard, or I'm talking myself out of Goddard, but AJ Brown might be a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick in this type of format. And that would be an interesting pick. I want to make sure I'm getting some Eagles correlation with Jalen Hurts. And he also has a week 7. And then Philadelphia, looking at, they've got the projected best quarterback schedule and one of the best defense schedules for the playoffs, weeks 15 through 17. And weeks 15 through 16, the wide receiver schedule it looks also pretty soft. So after Christian McCaffrey at the 111, 112 is Russell Wilson, Cooper Kupp at the 2-1. Oh, man, I'm sure the Stafford drafter is ticked off that he couldn't get Cooper Kupp in the second round. Trey Lance, Justin Jefferson at the 2-3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks away. I would be surprised if the likes of Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott are there for me, but we will see who else. We're going to look at all and just see who's flex-wise still in this consideration. Austin Eckler is available, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Swift. So Najee Harris goes off the 2-4. Feel like we're starting to get into some of the first round values. I'm surprised that the likes of Dak Prescott is not being taken off here. Jamar Chase at the 2-5. Is that paired with Burrow? That might be paired with Burrow. I'll be smashing Dak Prescott if he makes it to me. If not, then I might wait and see what other flex positions. I really wanted to leave my first 2 rounds with quarterbacks, but if there's a tremendous flex value still out there, then I'll want to do that. Like Austin Eckler just goes off the board. Derrick Henry goes off the board. And you guys are leaving me with Dak Prescott in the second round. Oh, man. Now I get to stack Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. This is great because Dallas, they've got the 3rd best playoff quarterback schedule and the 5th best wide receiver. So I want to stack these Philadelphia and Dallas wide receivers with their respective quarterbacks. Things are looking pretty good so far. I'm extremely pleased with how this draft is going. To get Dak Prescott in the second round at the 2-8, absolutely. Oh my goodness. That is outstanding value. Because Dak Prescott, I was just scrolling through Twitter today and trying to find ways to intentionally engage with my content. One of the posts was, who do you think is going to be the quarterback 2 in this year? And someone replied, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Dave. But they replied Dak Prescott. And I wrote up on my Fantasy Pros article recently that Dak Prescott is someone that you want to be targeting in your best ball drafts as a quarterback, because over the last 3 seasons, only Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott have 25 or more fantasy points as their 73rd percentile outcome or higher. So that's really good. That's really good. Aaron Rodgers here might make it to the 212. I can't believe this. Deshaun Watson goes off ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Yes. Oh, yes. This is very good because now I can target some of the wide receivers of Philly and of Dallas, and I don't need to worry about rankings. I can reach a little bit on CeeDee Lamb maybe here. And also, I was talking about how Ezekiel Elliott might be a value in the 5th round in one quarterback drafts, and then he might fall to the 7th round in this type of format. And I'd love to get Zeke on the team. So bring him on in. This might be very good. All right, we've got a Devontae Adams 212 sighting. I don't know if I'll get CeeDee Lamb here. I hope so. Derek Carr goes off at the 3-1 to stack with Devontae Adams. That's a natural stack here. But looking once again at Philly's wide receiver, they're 7th in fantasy playoffs ranking in this preliminary ranking shared by the Full-Time Fantasy Crew. And then also looking at, so Philadelphia is there, and then Dallas is 5th. So I want to be taking late stabs at the Dallas and Philadelphia wide receiver cores and also some of the pass catchers. So I want pieces of those offenses. If I can get CeeDee Lamb here in 2 picks, that would be really nice. I think Stephon Diggs ahead of him So I just hope that Always Smoot does not take CeeDee Lamb here, and he's not watching right now. So hopefully Always Smoot does not get CeeDee Lamb. That would stink. Okay, good. I get Lamb here, make the pick, refresh, and we're all set with so far the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb stack. I'll also be looking for Dalton Schultz. I'll be willing to reach a little bit on Dalton Schultz. Yeah, let's add A.J. Brown to the queue. And let's also add like Ezekiel Elliott to the queue. Where is Miles Sanders? There we go. Goddard, Devonta Smith. Wow, Devonta Smith is really priced down in these drafts. That's surprising. Tony Pollard, I don't think is a great value, but he's going to be a priority add stacking wise. Dalton Schultz behind Dallas Goedert in this format. That's surprising. Yeah, so there's a lot of very interesting pass catchers even later on. Let's look at the Dallas wide receivers. Gallup may be back. Tolbert, James Washington. And then looking at Philly, Quez Watkins is interesting to me. Jalen Reagor is not. Okay. Yeah. So I'm excited about how this thing is turning out. So far, looking at the board, there's just one team with no quarterback so far. And I think that they'll feel pretty good about getting the likes of a Cousins later on. Let me refresh and see how that is doing. But Javonte Williams goes off with the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase team. Yeah, we're going to want to fill up wide receiver real quick. I don't know if A.J. Brown's going to make it back to me. That's my concern here. Tua Tagovailoa goes off at the 310. Yep, so that fills in the Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson team. So every team has at least one quarterback through the first 3 rounds. Oh, man, that was interesting on FFPC. You can check out, I believe it was episode 8 or 9. Maybe it was 7, 7, 8, or 9, where I did an FFPC draft live. And actually, one of the drafters reached out to me and he was like, I punted quarterback until quarterback 28, where he drafted Carson Wentz, I think in the 8th round. And I was like, that I feel like that's sub EV at the highest scoring positions. Mike Evans goes off. That's a good pick for the 311. Oh, man. I'm worried that A.J. Brown's not going to make it back to me in this start 3 wide receiver super flex tournament. I think that A.J. Brown is going to be absolute fire this year. He might be outside the top 10, but Kirk Cousins going off at the 312. That's a big pick. I really like Kirk Cousins' value. I was willing to take him at the beginning of the 3rd. If Dak Prescott didn't fall to me, I probably would have taken the likes of an Austin Eckler, at that spot. I know Travis Kelce isn't the bastion of youth anymore, and there's not a tight end premium in this league. He's still going to be hyper targeted in this Chiefs offense. He should have been in consideration there. But with Dak Prescott being there, I can't pass up firming up my quarterback 2 in that way. It's too much. It's way too much. All right, so Keenan Allen and A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins might be a priority pick for this Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase team. Saquon Barkley goes off the 4-2. I'm waiting 5 picks, and I hope in those 5 picks, A.J. Brown does not go off. All right, 4 picks. We're counting down. I'm telegraphing, what I'm doing and who I'm trying to get to. It's going to be hard though, and we'll see if I get lucky. Matt Ryan goes off at the 4-3. That solidifies that team's 2 quarterbacks. Justin Fields goes off there. There's also 2 quarterbacks. this might be the time where quarterback is running thin and teams either pivot to the best player available or they take the quarterback when they can get him. And I'm surprised that there are quarterbacks like Matt Ryan still lasting to the fourth round, Justin Fields to the fourth round. Justin Fields was a borderline round 2, round 3 pick in underdog drafts when I was drafting in February and March and even early April. He was the end of that tier with Kirk Cousins for me, that quarterback 2 tier that I was happy having. But since the Chicago Bears did not address the position, he's in a void for me at this point. Team Pena takes Trevor Lawrence, and I just have to survive 2 picks, Peach 07 and Champion Ball 4-6 and 4-7. Hopefully they don't take AJ Brown here. I would be all sorts of upset just to mess with my stacks. There's nothing like being sniped on your stacks in May 20th, but here we are. I don't know. I really don't have a pivot. Mark Andrews, that's a great value, actually. Let's look at all and see where we're at. Alvin Kamara is still available. Keenan Allen. Aaron Jones. If I get sniped, I might go Aaron Jones here. But nope. It's going to be A.J. Brown for me. Make the pick. I've got my Eagles and Dallas Cowboys stacks, the wide receiver ones for both of the respective teams. And this is a full PPR, start 3 wide receivers, start 2 quarterbacks because it's super flex. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Oh, baby, look out. I'm feeling really good about how this team is turning out. And now I can just pick off value because I don't need to stack anyone really anymore. If there are players that are close in that same tier, I'll take them. But I feel like I don't need to take anyone at this point because I've got my 2 wide receivers. I've got my 2 quarterbacks. That's going to be the foundation of this team. If it goes far, which, the quarterback ratings and the wide receiver ratings for the playoffs are going to be very good. CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. I can't believe I'm getting picks like this at this point in the draft. Alvin Kamara has fallen pretty significantly. He's a strong consideration for me to come back around and just take shots, take value, because it is full PPR, and Alvin Kamara is the only sure thing in this New Orleans Saints offense. So in the meantime, the rest of the teams are picking. I'm going to tweet out that I am live right now. Okay. Jameis Winston goes off the board. And looking at who's next, we've got a couple more picks until I'm up. Looking at who's still available, like Deontay Johnson as your wide receiver 3 could be a really nice pickup. Jalen Waddle is a nice pick here. James Conner is a high upside touchdown maker. And you only have to start 2 running backs in this. Kyle Pitts is available. Looking at the tight end for Atlanta. If only this was sorted by... Yeah, tight end is going to be tough against Atlanta for that championship week, 26th. Yikes, that's going to be a tough matchup. I don't know if I want to go with Kyle Pitts at that point. Looking at Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, Pittsburgh's wide receivers during the fantasy playoffs weeks 15 to 17. That's 4th, so that could be a good matchup. And then also, who did I say? Miami could be operating on all cylinders, and they're 8th. So looking at Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle could be great values here. And Deontay Johnson is one of the most sure things when it comes to wide receiver 2s. And I think I'm going to go Deontay Johnson, make the pick, refresh. I am confident that Deontay Johnson will still be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for me, and he's going to fill that spot very nicely. And the Yeah, I'm not concerned at all about him losing significant targets. At one point, the Steelers were throwing to the likes of what's his name out of the slot. I don't even know. He's 5'7". I can't think of his name, but he signed with Ray McLeod. He signed with San Francisco. So Ray McLeod out of the slot. Diontae Johnson's going to move all over the place. They're going to get him the ball. So in a start 3 wide receiver league, getting Diontae Johnson as your wide receiver 3 with AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb, that's looking really nice. The only concerns now I have is that week 9 bye. So I'll just be conscious of that. But in my queue, I've got lots of Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys lined up. Maybe I'll take a late stab at like a Kenny Pickett or a Mitchell Trubisky just to see if anything sticks for a little bit. But yeah, I'm feeling great about this draft. I'm just going to take the value where it is. And Diontae Johnson, I mentioned, I believe was an honorable mention in yesterday's podcast where I talked about players I want to be targeting in each rounds. And granted, that podcast was about one quarterback leagues. This is super flex. So check out episode 10 on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Best Bell Fantasy YouTube channel, and then give me some likes and comments. I love engaging with the audience. And then, of course, give 5 stars on Apple reviews and Spotify so that I can keep pumping out content like this for free. This is for free. You get an inside scoop on how I'm drafting, what my strategies are. As I mentioned before, this structure is quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex play, and a super flex position, which is why I've been prioritizing quarterback and wide receiver. But back to Diontae Johnson, I have him pegged in the same spot as Jalen Waddle, but ahead of Kyle Pitts and around the same as James Conner. I wasn't willing to take the fragile James Conner at this point in the draft. Kyle Pitts has been falling, so I would be willing to take him at value if that's what it takes. Looking at other players who are available at this spot, Michael Pittman, Antonio Gibson. We just saw Terry McLaurin go off at the 5'12". I think that's a good pick, but McLaurin has struggled lately. His value rating should be around like 42 in one quarterback league. Middle of the 4th round, I think, is the appropriate value for him right now. He did not return on that investment last year, but over the last 3 years, he's had a 37.2% win rate, which is not too bad. That's better than like the Mike Williams of the world, and certainly better than the Jerry Jeudy's of the world. Even better than CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, we'll see who else starts coming up here. We saw Courtland Sutton go off the board at the 6'1", Ryan Tannehill at the 6'2". And that is the second quarterback for Erwin Mainway. Yeah, the board takes a little bit to refresh, but that's fine by me. I'd be surprised if Kyle Pitts makes it back to me, but he would be the pick here if, he does make it back. Davis Mills at the 6'3". We now see our third quarterback team, or 3 quarterback teams, 2 Matt Ryan and Davis Mills. That's the type of start you have to get 3 of those type of quarterbacks, because they're not going to be returning the type of upside that you would hope. And now Brandon Cooks is going to have to be a priority add, but I don't think he's going to come back to Bronco to 2208. Okay. Yeah, where is Dalton Schultz going off the board? That is the question here. Dalton Schultz, there's still Kittle available on the board, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert. This is why you got to wait on tight end in these formats. I can't believe that George Kittle is still available. Antonio Gibson. Let me look. Gibson and Elliott might be the ones that are available. Gibson has a 40 and 46% win rate. And looking at Ezekiel Elliott, Zeke has a 57-48. So I feel like they're pretty comparable. I don't want the correlation with Zeke at this point. Looking at the bookmarks for Washington, their running back is 7th in the fantasy playoffs. So that's not too bad. And if I can get week 14, I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to make the pick, Antonio Gibson. Okay, very good. And where is Kittle going? Yeah, Kittle's going right after. Oh, yeah, Gibson was very much the ADP value over Ezekiel Elliott at that point. Okay, we'll refresh. And Brandon Cooks, Josh Jacobs still over there. We're starting to see third quarterbacks go off the board, and that's just going to leave value hanging out. It's going to bring back more positional value if you're drafting your Daniel Jones. Like, this is why you want to prioritize your top tier quarterbacks during the first 2 rounds, because then you don't have to worry about take a stretch on another quarterback. Like, you're not stretching yourself. I don't have to worry about if Daniel Jones is going to rotate in with Zach Wilson. It's going to be Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. And that's it. That's who I'm aligning myself with. So yeah, we're looking good so far. I'm happy with how my team is turning out. So far, I've got 2 quarterbacks, 1 running back, and 3 wide receivers. Dak and Jalen Hurts, Antonio Gibson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson are my wide receivers, and Antonio Gibson, the running back. And as I mentioned, like, going after and consolidating with Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott allows me to just let the value come to me in these drafts. I don't need to reach. I don't need to attack any particular position too heavily. I can let the value come to me, or I can just pick the players I want to correlate with. So looking at week 17, in particular, weeks 15 through 17 in the fantasy playoffs, because that's where the money is being made. You want to get some correlations going. And weeks 15 through 17, some of the running backs you want on your team, Travis Etienne, would be for Jacksonville. They've got a great schedule. Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, those players are off the board, but Etienne is not. David Montgomery is off the board. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, also an interesting pick. Okay. So I might be considering Travis Etienne coming up back around at the 7-5. Okay. Ezekiel Elliott does go off the board after Mike Williams, Elijah Moore, Breece Hall, Ezekiel Elliott goes off the board. And I'm happy about that. Fine. It's starting the 7th round. I wasn't willing to take Ezekiel Elliott in the 6th round. I feel like the 7th round would have been the right spot for him. But given that I had already gotten the pass catchers, or at least CeeDee Lamb, I wasn't going to just correlate. I was going to get the stacking aspect of the, I was going to get the stacking aspect. And I'm up. And Chris Godwin bizarrely goes off the board. Allen Robinson bizarrely goes off the board. George Kittle is here. Brandon Cooks is here. Josh Jacobs, Michael Thomas. And looking at some bye weeks, I don't need bye week 9 or 7 right now. Travis Etienne looks really good. Make the pick, refresh. And looking at the running back fantasy playoffs, the best ranked for those fantasy playoffs is Jacksonville based on the full-time fantasy strength of schedule. Oh man, getting Etienne as my running back 2 and then Antonio Gibson as my running back 1 as the 7th. It very well may be that Travis Etienne is my running back 1 and Antonio Gibson, who's pegged always as your perennial running back 2. The last 2 years, he only has a 3% running back 1 rate. But it might be Travis Etienne getting the running back 1 work out of Jacksonville. He is coming off the Lisfranc injury or Jones fracture. I can't remember. I think it's Lisfranc. But nevertheless, I love getting Travis Etienne there at the 7-5. George Kittle keeps falling. Marcus Mariota goes off in the 7th round. Oh, boy. Oh, this is disastrous for some of these teams. Sorry, Pena. I'm usually a fan of yours, but I didn't like that pick. Probably to stack with Kyle Pitts. That's what you're thinking. You've got the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack. It's either Marcus Mariota or it's George Kittle in the flex spot, or Michael Thomas. That's what I'm thinking about here. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. There's going to be some tremendous value coming back around. Michael Thomas does go off the 7-10. I've talked him up as having irreplaceable upside. I think Michael Thomas, if he plays, and he could be playing for New Orleans, he could be playing for the Patriots for all we know, come in a couple months. But Michael Thomas over the last 3 years has been one of the most elite wide receiver ones that we've seen due to the volume. Now we'll see how he recovers from the ankle injury that's kept him out most of, or a good part of, the last year and a half. George Kittle finally goes off the board at the 7-11. Holy guacamole. Looking around who's still available, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller. Looking at my value rankings, Waller should be going ahead of Josh Jacobs. Waller should have gone ahead of Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin, more like 56. So maybe closer to Cortland Sutton. Marquise Brown. I don't know if Marquise Brown has he gone off yet? I haven't seen if he's gone off yet. That would be surprising if he hasn't. But it's also getting to the point where, Dallas Goedert is showing up, and I might get the Goedert stack that late. We'll see. Where does tight end fill in for Philly? 13th. So that's fine. That's middle of the pack. But then looking at where Dallas 27th against tight end during the fantasy playoffs, it's definitely going to be Dalton Schultz who will get me there. And I'll probably lean Dalton Schultz because he's going to be the number 2 receiver in that Dallas Cowboys offense. So I may just take a value and just let Dalton Schultz come back to me in the 9th round. Yeah. Although if Darren Waller keeps falling, I don't even know. It would be really hard to pass up that value and that edge, leaving Darren Waller just hanging out there. So let's also look at some of those other players. A.J. Dillon, Juju Smith-Schuster. I have A.J. Dillon. Yeah, maybe behind TJ Hawkinson, behind or around Adam Thielen. Although Thielen, I feel like should be a top 55 one quarterback league pick. Yeah, we'll see who is available coming up. But Juju Smith-Schuster also, it's going to be hard to peg where Juju is supposed to go. I think this is the right spot for him, but I would rather try to take some values. Amon-Ra St. Brown might be an interesting pick. He's going right around that spot as well, although behind Juju, based on ADP, on drafters, which is also full PPR and not tight end premium. We saw Drake London go off here at the 8-4. Team Pena back on the clock after taking 3 quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Marcus Mariota, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. Gabriel Davis goes off the board, and then Kyle Pitts. So we've got, if Darren Waller comes to me at this point, there's no way that I can pass up Darren Waller, who should have gone maybe around like where Ezekiel Elliott went and George Kittle went. I think that's the appropriate value for him. But we'll see. Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm smashing Darren Waller if he comes to me at this point. If not, I don't know. A.J. Dillon looks good. Tyler Lockett. DeAndre Hopkins gets picked, and it's Darren Waller. Oh, Waller the baller at the 8-8. Oh, my gosh. I'm absolutely loving this team. I'm letting the value come to me. It's turning out phenomenal. Oh, and now I can come back around and take who I want. Let's start 3 wide receivers, so I probably can target like the Devonta Smith of the world. Looking at where the Vegas Raiders over the fantasy playoffs match up with the defense's tight end, that's 17th, middle of the pack. That's fine. Darren Waller in the 8th round. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Like like did Darren Waller get injured again? I don't know. I'm losing my mind over here. It's too late for Darren Waller. After Juju, after Gabe Davis, after Drake London, Rashad Bateman, I can't fathom Darren Waller going off of the 8-8. All right, enough. I'm losing it. Yeah, we'll see. Chris Olave goes off the 8-10. After Amon-Ra St. Brown was an interesting pick there. I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown to start the season because Jameson Williams probably will start the season on the physically unable to perform list. And given that ACL tear, like it's going to be mid-season, he's going to miss the first 6 to 8 games probably. So I do want Amon-Ra St. Brown on my team. I think DJ Chark is a cheaper Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You heard it here. So a field stretcher who's not an alpha. And we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown command targets. Now DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson were out. So they're going to get their shares for sure. But the number one wide receiver on this team is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown for the first half of the season. And then if the offense for the Lions is clicking, they may not move away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm talking myself in more and more to Amon-Ra St. Brown for 2022 because of the wide receiver that they drafted. If the Lions ended up drafting Drake London, for instance, or if they took Drake London, that would have been, I would have faded Amon-Ra St. Brown because Drake London is very good. Even like a Treylon Burks, I would have been concerned for Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Jameson Williams coming off the injury, that is good news for Amon-Ra St. Brown for 2022. Oh, we just saw Devonta Smith get taken. That's disappointing. That is very disappointing. Okay. So I might take, we see Goddard and Schultz here. Looking at where Dalton Schultz is on my ADP value, he had a 27% tight end win rate last year, which actually brought him up to like 66th. He should be going around Brandon Cooks and Darnell Mooney and Devonta Smith. So this is the right spot for him. And if I can firm up my tight end spot, the Philly tight end spot looking at is 13th, or Dallas, I should say. Let me look at the Dallas spot here. 27th. That is tough, but at least I'll have Darren Waller as well. Then I don't have to bother, and I'll have the number 1 option and number 2 option in the Dallas offense and the number 1 option in the Philadelphia offense as well. Okay. Looking at what quarterbacks are still available, Mac Jones, he's a useful quarterback and just goes off the board. Trubisky and Pickett are there. Jimmy Garoppolo is still available. Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral. Malik Willis, I wrote up as one of the rookies that I'm avoiding in best ball tournaments because even if Ryan Tannehill misses time due to injury or something catastrophic, the reality is that it is not going to be Malik Willis starting. So let me look at who else is available. I would have Dalton Schultz over Lockett for sure in this format. So yeah, let's go with the tight end position, tight end. We're going to go Dalton Schultz, make the pick. And we are good at tight end as well. I've got Darren Waller and Dalton Schultz. I'm not touching the tight end position. They've got bye weeks 6 and 9. I'm all set. I don't need to draft any more tight ends. I've got my quarterbacks, and now I can just start hammering wide receivers who have upside, and then take some late stabs at running back who don't have bye weeks 14 or 11. That's going to be my plan moving forward. It's going to be pretty nice. Yeah, TJ Hawkinson goes off after Dalton Schultz. Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes off. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is after Lockett, is after Dalton Schultz. Schultz is being drafted ahead of TJ Hawkinson, but there's still going to be some outstanding value. We're getting to the equivalent of the 7th round in one quarterback leagues, and Christian Kirk is a good value there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, is a decent value there. TJ Hawkinson, good value there. There's no one to hate really in this round. This is a good round to take stabs at players. And I know I'm going to have one of the best tight end groups. I have the stacks that I want, and I've got 2 quality running backs. So we'll just take some high upside flyers the rest of the way, especially at wide receiver, because CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson all have missed games for various reasons, whether it's been due to injury or drops, the dropsies for Deontay Johnson. Remember 2 years ago, he got benched for that. But maybe I throw a Kenny Pickett later on. Let me see where Pittsburgh lands. Yeah, so their quarterback rating for the fantasy playoffs is 5th. And if you're thinking that Kenny Pickett can outplay Mitchell Trubisky by the end of the season, I think that's within the range of outcomes. He was a first-round quarterback, and Mitchell Trubisky's being paid backup money. Mitchell Trubisky is in Pittsburgh. That's right. Marcus Mariota in Atlanta. We're making the rounds here. So Treylon Burks goes off after Rashad Penny. Yeah, I'm not comfortable taking running backs at this point. It's gonna be wide receivers moving forward. And I got the 5th quarterback and 12th quarterback, 6th wide receiver, 11th and 15th wide receivers, 18th and 21st running backs, 5th and 6th tight ends. So probably gonna go fragile build with the tight ends. Maybe I'll throw a Kenny Pickett on in this coming round and then not touch quarterback the rest of the way. Although looking at what quarterbacks are available, because I don't need Kenny Pickett to be useful for me until the end of the season when he'll be starting hopefully anyway. If we're projecting and seeing how we're playing for the playoffs, it's going to be Kenny Pickett, right? Who will be the starter at the end of the year. It's not going to be Mitchell Trubisky. Pickett's going to be the quarterback of the future, and by the end of the season, he's going to be the one who's starting. So I'll probably take Pickett at this spot. He and Mitchell Trubisky are the next quarterbacks up in the queue, and they're the only other viable plays because Sam Darnold, I don't know who you're going to be picking. Sam Darnold, Matt Corral, but I want to stay away from that Carolina offense. At least the Steelers have a good matchup during the fantasy playoffs. And that data is in thanks to Full-Time Fantasy. So if you haven't played on Full-Time Fantasy, definitely check it out. And use I don't know if the promo code is available yet, but we're working on hopefully an affiliate partnership with FFWC here at Best Bell Fantasy. So keep your eyes out for that. I'll be talking all off season about, that's not what I want to do here. There we go. Okay. I'll be talking best ball drafts and doing other tournaments. It's going to be a lot of fun drafting here, and I'm having the time of my life here at Full-Time Fantasy, drafting in this super flex draft. I'm up here in a couple picks, and it's probably going to be, my pick will be Kenny Pickett. Yeah, and I'll just take late stabs on Jalen Tolbert, James Washington, Quez Watkins. Those are going to be 3 wide receivers that I will prioritize, Dallas and Philly, but also maybe taking some late stabs on, if I go the Kenny Pickett route here in a couple picks, I will be looking to get some of the George Pickens of the world. Chase Claypool, I believe, he just got picked. So Chase Claypool is off the board, but that's fine. Deontay Johnson is the target hog in this offense, and he'll probably be moved around. Pena is probably going to time out here, and we'll see who he is autoed. Robert Woods. Yikes. Sorry, Pena. I'm not liking how your draft is turning out. Russell Gage goes off the 10-6. Love me some Russell Gage. Love Russell Gage here in the equivalent of a 1 quarterback 8th round. Dallas Goedert goes off, and I'm sniped there. I didn't want him anyways. I'm going to draft Kenny Pickett here at the 10-8 to stack with my Deontay Johnson. Okay, refresh. Okay, I don't have a quarterback or a quarterback in my super flex during the week 9. That might be the time where I've got to take some wide receivers who are not there week 9. Yeah, like New York Giants have a bye week 9, so I would not be taking them then. But looking at the rest of the values, Damian Harris, Kareem Hunt is still here. Oh man, Kareem Hunt wouldn't be a bad pick here come around the 11th round. Yeah. Okay. Just to recap for those tuning in, I started off the draft with 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. I was able to stack them with their number 1 wide receivers in CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. I was able to get Deontay Johnson in the 5th round of this Superflex draft. And then I got Antonio Gibson, your perennial running back 2, Travis Etienne, who I'm hoping has running back 1 upside. And I think will have that potential given his connection with Trevor Lawrence in Clemson. Darren Waller was just too much of a value to pass up in the 8th round. I couldn't help myself. It's 8th round Darren Waller. I don't care if it's super flex. He shouldn't be going that late. Dalton Schultz in the 9th round was the stackable secondary piece with Jalen Hurts. And then I took Kenny Pickett because 1, I needed a 3rd quarterback, and 2, it works out with Deontay Johnson. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a really good quarterback wide receiver schedule come fantasy playoff time. So that may be something to keep in mind. Also, Hurts and the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles have really great quarterback wide receiver schedules at the end of the season. Darren Waller has schedule for the Vegas Raiders. But as I said before, Waller was a value pick at this point. I couldn't pass up Darren Waller in the middle of the 8th round. And I'm coming up here in the 11th round. There are a lot of values still hanging out, especially in running back. So a 0 running back build probably isn't the right play in this type of format, given or it probably is the right type of play in this format because you have to start 3 wide receivers. And we just saw Damian Harris go off the board, James Cook. There's a little bit of a running back run, and I'm going to take Kareem. No, but he's by week 9, but I have that covered. Make the pick. Refresh. Kareem Hunt is just an auto pick here in the 11th round. I can't help myself. These values are coming to me. Kareem Hunt, I have valued in the 7th round of your 1 quarterback drafts. And to get Kareem Hunt here, he's had a 36% win rate over the last 3 years and a 45.6% win rate last year on this Browns team. Even if he switches teams, whichever team's going to pick him up is going to use him in a high leverage role. He's one of the most accomplished pass catching running backs that nobody's talking about. He had a higher quarterback or running back 1 rate last season than Nick Chubb in full PPR. And this is a full PPR format. So getting Gibson, Etienne, Kareem Hunt to rotate through, I'm very happy about that. I'm going to have to hammer wide receiver, I know, but there's still a lot of very good wide receivers hanging out And if you can identify the right wide receivers, it's going to be very good for you. So let me look at some of the wide receivers still available. Some of them include Kadarius Toney, Garrett Wilson, first-round pick, Allen Lazard, Devontae Parker, Tyler Boyd, and Lazard was an honorable mention in yesterday's podcast, episode 10. Check it out on the YouTube channel and on your podcast feed. But Devontae Parker, also an honorable mention. Tyler Boyd was the smash of the 12th round or the 10th round in one quarterback leagues for me. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was an honorable mention. DJ Chark fell outside the top 10 rounds, but he's a great value. And you want to be avoiding the Mecole Hardmans of the world. But Jamison Crowder is an honorable mention. And then I can attack like the George Pickens. So I can add Pickens here. I'm adding him to my queue. Just looking at a few other stackable pieces. Yeah, looking at also, I know I drafted Kareem Hunt, but in Cleveland, what is there we go. The running back is 8th in the fantasy playoffs. So I've got 1st and 7th and 8th in running backs for the fantasy playoffs. This is going to look really good come the end of competition here. Okay. Yeah. So I'm happy how this is turning out. I've got 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. I'm all set at quarterback. I'm all set at tight end. Now I can just hammer wide receiver pretty much the rest of the draft because you have to start 3 wide receivers in this league. Corey Davis might be a consideration. DJ Chark, as I mentioned before. You can take late shots on Odell Beckham, who might be available for the fantasy playoffs. And there's been chatter about him returning to the Los Angeles Rams. That would be a great value. You just want people who will continue to grow and get better on your team. So I might be targeting some of the rookies, but also some later picks like KJ Osborne, who's tied to the Minnesota Vikings, or looking at the wide receivers for the fantasy playoffs. Number 1 is going to be San Francisco. Number 2, scrolling up and down. Number 2, I don't see, but number 3 is Green Bay. So Allen Lazard might be a nice pick there, although it's going to be cold. The Rams are number 2. 3 I said were the Packers. 4 was Pittsburgh. So I definitely want to get George Pickens on this team pretty soon. Yeah. Yeah. George Pickens is going to be a priority ad coming up in the next couple rounds. Because by that time, Pickens might be the number 2 ahead of Claypool. Or maybe it's Claypool, Pickens, and Deontay Johnson. Or maybe it's Pickens is 3rd still, but he's getting a 15-17% target share, and he has 1 blow-up week. That's all you need in these fantasy playoffs is getting those correlations down and the bye weeks down. Although the hurtful thing is that because I've stacked that way, I do have a lot of buys in week 9 so far. I like both Kenny Pickett, Dak Prescott are on bye week 9. Kareem Hunt week 9 bye. Deontay and CeeDee Lamb are week 9 buys, and Dalton Schultz. So I do have some plays, but looking at partial season, yeah. Weeks 9, there's not going to be a lot of, it's going to be hard to get into the middle of that and say, you know what, this player, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to probably I like Tyler Boyd in the 10th round. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling coming back around. Let me look at what the values are for those players. Marquez Valdes-Scantling slightly ahead, although I have Tyler Boyd way ahead of Valdes-Scantling. So if I can get Tyler Boyd here, that would be real nice. And he is available. Make the pick in the 12th round, refresh, boom. And now I've got Tyler Boyd by week 10 as my wide receiver 2. That's not too bad on that particular bye week. And if anything happens to Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, look out. We've seen 1,000-yard seasons from Tyler Boyd when it was Andy Dalton throwing in the ball. This time it's Joe Burrow. And even with the addition of T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase, Tyler Boyd's put up 830 plus receiving yards each of the last 2 seasons. So I love Tyler Boyd pick here in the end of the 12th round. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is behind Tyler Boyd in my valuations. But also looking here at some of the other wide receiver values. Is Kadarius Toney still available? No, he's not. Where's DJ Chark? I'm going to check out where Chark is. Chark is further down the list, but I have him at 115. So he should be going right behind Valdes-Scantling and Tyler Boyd anyways. That's fine. I feel like he's being drafted at value. Oh, and then maybe some Jameson Williams here. His bye week is week 6. He might come back after the bye week. And Jameson Williams could be the difference maker here. A first-round draft pick on what I hope to be, what is an improved Lions offense. Do I think that, so DKB's jumping in the draft. Appreciate you chiming in here, DKB. Do you think Matt Corral will take over for Darnold sometime this season? I think so. Darnold is not a good quarterback. He did okay those first 4 weeks or so. If you remember, his average depth of target was like in the 9s. And then after the bye week and when the injuries started happening, Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. Teams just focused on making Darnold throw the ball. And he couldn't. Whereas the existence of Christian McCaffrey in that offense kept defenses honest. They knew that McCaffrey was a weapon out of the backfield, and that allowed the likes of Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore to get down the field and open up the offense. But after the Christian McCaffrey injury, we saw what the Carolina Panthers offense became, and it wasn't a pretty sight. Jameson Williams goes off the board. David Bell goes off the board. Sorry, DKB, wallowing in that sadness here. But nevertheless, I think that Matt Corral will, because Matt Rule is going to play for his job. He's going to see that Darnold's not that good for the first couple games, and it may just be that Matt Corral is the starter the rest of the season. Okay, we saw Jamison Crowder go off the board. We're now seeing some pretty wide receiver heavy drafters. Also some sprinkling in of running backs. We saw a 0 RB build out of the 3 hole. And we'll see who's picked next. That 0 RB build is Kenneth Walker, Dameon Pierce, James Cook, and Alexander Mattison. And Mattison has the upside we've seen over the last couple of years. Alexander Mattison, he was an undervalued. He should be at about the 120s, 10th round, so probably 12th round equivalent in this type of draft. But his win rate last year was 20.6. And that was ahead of the likes of Michael Carter, even Chase Edmonds. That was better than Miles Sanders. That was better than Tony Pollard. Alexander Mattison, when he steps into that running back 1 role, he's going to produce running back 1 numbers. All right, so I'm up here. DJ Chark goes off the board. I was disappointed by that pick. I'm looking at a lot of the wide receivers. I don't like what I'm seeing here. Let me see if there are any other values. And Melvin Gordon might be a huge value at this point. Let me look at where Gordon is going. But Melvin Gordon, yeah, he's a tremendous value in full PPR in Denver. Refresh. I'm going to need more wide receivers, but I didn't feel like the value was there for wide receiver. And maybe I'm being too picky, but I would rather have the likes of Melvin Gordon shoring up my running back 4 spot than Corey Davis shoring up my wide receiver 5 spot. Yeah. I know that Melvin Gordon is by week 9. Yeah, week 9 is going to be the bye-pocalypse for a lot of teams. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Denver, Dallas, all bye weeks, week 9. Also, New York Giants by week 9. It's ugly. It's real ugly. Yeah, so are the wide receivers at this point. Mike Gesicki going off, Darrell Henderson. I like Darrell Henderson, that value too, because looking at where Henderson is being drafted, Melvin Gordon was undervalued, but Darrell Henderson had a 50.3 win rate last season while Cam Akers was out. And that's a big win rate. If Cam is out again, or if he's slowing down, we saw in the Super Bowl that Darrell Henderson was going to handle about half the carries anyways. So, yeah, I'm going to have to hammer wide receiver. This is how it's going to be. I'm shoring up my other spots, making sure I'm all set. Getting these pass-catching running backs, Gibson and Etienne and Waller and Hunt and Melvin Gordon, they all offer PPR upside, and there's a floor to them. Yeah, I think that they're going to be keeping me in it while the rest of my team is elite. Yeah. Okay. We saw after Mike Gesicki go off at the 13-7, Rachaad White, Alec Pierce, J.D. McKissick at the 13-10, Gerald Everett for the LA Chargers, tight end. Where's Everett? As the tight end 14? That's a little early for Everett. I love Everett. I think he's going to be one of the best values. But tight end 14 probably could have waited a bit. Gesicki at 13 is not bad either. Okay. And Tim Patrick goes off of the 13-12. Looking at some of the wide receivers that are hanging out at this point, once again, this was the right call, not drafting Corey Davis because he didn't go off. Van Jefferson, week 7. Let's look at what Van Jefferson has done. Where's Van Jefferson? Yeah, he should be going around the spot between. He had a 17% win rate last season, which is about the same as Jarvis Landry, about the same as DJ Chark, ahead of Jacoby Myers, ahead of Rondell Moore, ahead of Kadarius Toney. I'm talking myself into Van Jefferson, especially Allen Robinson just is going to take over that Robert Woods role as the wide receiver 2. And I think that Van Jefferson as a wide receiver 3 is a respectable wide receiver 3. So he's going to be a target for me at week 7. Let's also look at what Marvin Jones did for Jacksonville. Maybe there's a correlation there. He had a 24.7% win rate last season, and he's going after Van Jefferson. So Van Jefferson is going to most likely be the priority pick here. But Marvin Jones rightly should also be considered at this spot. Other considerations, Laviska Shenault, probably not. And then looking at what Will Fuller has done, I don't know where he's going to sign. William Fuller. He had a 32% win rate over the last 3 years, but that was tied to Deshaun Watson. I don't know where Will Fuller is going to sign. None of us know at this point. I'm surprised he hasn't signed, but that's going to be a big question. Where does Will Fuller sign? Is his quarterback going to get him the ball in the way that Deshaun Watson did? We just saw Desmond Ridder go off at the 14-4, Rob Gronkowski at the 14-5. That's pretty late for Gronk. I like his upside. I love Gronk's upside, but that is that's the second quarterback or tight end to go off after Kyle Pitts on that team for Team Pena. I feel like Pena is just a hodgepodge of a little bit of correlation here, a little bit of correlation there. But James Robinson goes off of the 14-6. I don't get that. He tore his Achilles at the second last week of the season. That's I've seen so much value come to me. We'll see if Van Jefferson comes. But AJ Green goes off. Let's look at where the Rams are wide receiver. Yup, they're second. So I want Van Jefferson because of his schedule. The bye week is looking good. He's on a good offense. If any injuries happen, like Van Jefferson could be the wide receiver 2 in this team. Make a pick, refresh. Van Jefferson, I love it. He's got just enough upside to make things interesting. And then probably as I come back around, there's going to be another pick that I'm going to make here. George Pickens will most likely be my selection come back around for week 9. So I would have at least Boyd, AJ Brown, and Van Jefferson going in week 9. And then in week 7, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Boyd would be the starting wide receivers there. But yeah, I would have to consider another value here. Let's see what quarterbacks are still available. Yeah, someone took Mitchell Trubisky as their third quarterback with Ryan Tannehill and Trey Lance. I don't know what's happening with Trey Lance. Let's be honest. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't know if I want to invest at this point. Things were looking clearer. The chatter has been going the right way for Trey Lance, but I'm not a fan of how this has been handled by the San Francisco 49ers. It makes me nervous. All right, Khalil Herbert goes off the board. I like him at the 15-1. Kenneth Gain as well. Alvin Kamara and Breece Hall at your running back 1 and 2. That's not a bad start. Kenneth Gainwell, Khalil Herbert at your running backs 3 and 4. Not bad at all. But looking at who's still available for wide receiver, like Sterling Shepard, he's not going to be a consideration here. Maybe Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel was an absolute zero last season, but he had a 32.3% wide receiver win rate over the last 3 seasons in the games he's played. And that's including last year where he drew dead. That's significantly higher than Marvin Jones and Robbie Anderson at this point. He just offers the type of upside that is unmatched. Like Sterling Shepard, if he was healthy, would be a pick. But Shepard would have been picked so much earlier. And so I'm up on the clock here. Mechie Henry goes off the board. We're going to get George Pickens at this spot and then come back around and see if Curtis Samuel is still available. I am talking myself into Curtis Samuel, but yeah, I couldn't pass up the stack capability with Pickens and Pickett near the end of the season. Looking at some of the playoff considerations in Washington, Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel are there. And looking at Washington's wide receiver, you do not want them in the fantasy playoffs. They're got the toughest schedule. So I've talked myself out of Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson at this spot. I'm not stacking. I don't need them at this point. Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel go off the board anyways, so that's good. Who are some other wide receiver groups that I could be targeting at this point? Detroit's has already gone off the board. Yeah, we got some Philly late, Dallas late, Cincinnati even in the top 10 during the fantasy playoffs. That's pretty good. 9th is Detroit. 6th is Chicago. Maybe a last round stab at Velus Jones. That might be an interesting selection. Arizona is 11th. but I don't see a lot of, maybe I'll throw Byron Pringle into my queue. I just don't want to be drawing dead at this point. You want players who might be able to help you out. Let me look at Wan'Dale Robinson. Where are the Giants on this list? New York Giants for wide receivers, 24th. So not great, bottom quarter or so, but still not ideal. Plus he's a bye week 9, so I don't want that. Jalen Tolbert is a consideration at this point. Quez Watkins also later on. James Washington could play a very big role in this Dallas offense. So we just saw, after Jahan Dotson, Albert Okwuegbunam, Raheem Mostert, Josh Palmer, Evan Ingram, Wan'Dale Robinson. Where's Jacksonville's wide receivers? 27th. I don't want those in the fantasy playoffs. Kansas City, that's going to be a tough spot. They're 23rd. I'm actually pretty happy with how those had turned out. Maybe there's a Miami player because Miami had decent matchups at this point. Cedric Wilson, I can throw him into the queue. Yeah, Jalen Tolbert is already there. Right now, my build is a 3-4-6-2 build. I probably want to add one more running back as well. We'll see what running back values are available here. And what are some of the running backs? Detroit is up there. So Jamal Williams, if he's healthy, that might be interesting. DeAndre Swift struggles with injury later in the season. Might be Jamal Williams' time. That might be an interesting pick later on here. Who are some other running backs? The Rams, Tampa, Indy. Indy's 10th. Nyheim Hines is here. 11th, 12th, San Francisco and LA Chargers. Has Isaiah Spiller gone off? I don't think so. Maybe he has. Isaiah Spiller was already picked. All right, so I'm up and looking at all. Jamal Williams is probably going to be my pick here for ADP and the matchup late in the season. And the Detroit Tigers or the Detroit Lions play in a dome. So Jamal Williams is going to be the pick. And I'm all set with running back. I'm at a 3-5-6-2 build. And I've got some late round picks like Tolbert, Washington, Watkins, Pringle, and Wilson that are in my queue ready to roll. Noah Fant, surprisingly, is still out there. That's tempting to throw in. Like, that's going to be really hard to say no to at this point. I feel like it's just going to be suboptimal if I take Schultz, Waller, and Fant. Yeah, I think that's going to be suboptimal if I take those types of players. Nevertheless. All right. No, I'm happy how this draft has turned out. I've got the stacks that I've wanted. I've got the late season playoff correlations happening, the matchups that I want, the ranks, all of that. I didn't have to stretch too much on ADP anywhere. I've got my 2 stud quarterbacks. I'm so happy about that. And then getting AJ Brown, Deontay Johnson, and CeeDee Lamb. Tyler Boyd is a wide receiver 4. That's not bad at all. It's going to be a rotation between Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Boyd, Pickens, Jefferson, Dalton Schultz, even. I'm happy how that's turning out. And then anchored by Prescott and Hurts. So, yeah, this is going to be a team that I think is contending and going to be in a good position to contend, not only making the playoffs, but also the certain matchups that are going to be looking pretty good. I think that's one of the things that I'm going to try to improve on over the next few drafts is keeping in mind these late season matchup, because looking at the Dallas wide receivers, their wide receivers are fifth during the fantasy playoffs. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are seventh. So I'm getting some of the best, but the quarterbacks are first and third. So those are setting up for spike weeks and spike stacks to go against each other and also to really level up during those playoff times, which is what you want. You want them to be you want your teams to be hitting the nuts at the playoffs. We're not playing for double your money. You want to win this whole thing. And I feel like this team is in contention right here. I've got higher and lower stacks. I've got some correlations going. I am a little weaker during week 9, but that's fine. Yeah, Noah Fant did go off at the 16-12. 17-1 is Drew Lock. 17-2 is Irv Smith Jr. Trey McBride at the 17-3. I don't think Trey McBride is a best ball target at all this year. Even if Zach Ertz gets injured, it's probably going to still be Rondell Moore. It's going to be AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown. It's going to be those wide receivers because Trey McBride is just going to be a rookie. And I know that we've seen like Pat Freiermuth, but Pat Freiermuth, 50 yards and a touchdown is probably the ceiling for Trey McBride during his rookie season if Zach Ertz gets hurt. Yeah. Oh, I'm up. Oops. I'm almost going to time out here. And I want to get... Oh, Marvin Jones is still there. Let's make that pick. I know they don't have good matchups near the end, but Marvin Jones is still one of the highest scoring, and that still leaves me with a lot of wide receivers to draft. And Marvin Jones has bye week 11, so hopefully he's still on all cylinders during that time. The Jacksonville Jaguars did bring in Christian Kirk, but Kirk has never commanded an enormous target share. Like looking over the last few years, like Christian Kirk has been lucky to get that 20% target share. We were hoping that before DeAndre Hopkins came, that it was going to be the Christian Kirk show, but Hopkins was the alpha on that team. However, Marvin Jones over the last few seasons, in 2020 had 115 targets, 2021 118 targets. He just got unlucky for the touchdowns. And then looking at his target share last season, 20.3, a 30.8% target share in the red zone. Last season in 2020, 20.6% target share. 2019, 20.2, target share 18.7 in 2018, 2017, 18.9% target share, 19.1% target share in 2016, 20.8 in 2015. Even back in 2013, had about a 14% target share. His rookie season, 12. Marvin Jones probably going to be in that 18 to 20% target share range. And to get him in the 17th round at wide receiver 81, Marvin Jones isn't going to go away because of the signing Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. Okay. So I feel like I got tremendous value there, even with him having a bad matchup near the end of the year. I'm banking on him not making my lineup then. I don't need him to. Instead, it's Marvin Jones, wide receiver 81. That will return some flex value here and there. And looking at what Marvin Jones has done over the last few seasons, as I mentioned before, Marvin Jones, a 28.8% win rate over the last 3 seasons and a 24.7% win rate last season. A 28.8% win rate, higher than Jarvis Landry, higher than Corey Davis, higher than looking at some who are going ahead of Michael Gallup even over the last 3 seasons. It's about the same as Tyler Boyd, higher than Marquez Valdes-Scantling, higher than Allen Lazard, okay, higher than Russell Gage, even my boy Russell Gage. So we're making our way around, and I'm just going to be I've got James Washington. I've got Quez Watkins, Byron Pringle, Cedric Wilson in my queue. So probably James Washington and Quez Watkins will be the smash picks these 2 rounds, and then I'll figure out what I want to do in that last round. If any of the tight ends go off the board that I would, or any tight ends that I would be interested in, or if there's a quarterback value, maybe in that last round, like a Matt Corral or Baker Mayfield. But looking at the quarterback matchups, let's take a look at some of the quarterback matchups for the playoffs, just in case one of my guys gets hurt or something happens. Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, has a good matchup, so I've got Kenny Pickett. Looking at Cleveland, they're 11th, but Deshaun Watson is there. I don't think it's going to be Baker Mayfield at all. Matt Corral for Carolina, 32nd. Yeah, I don't want any Carolina at all, so I'm going to stay away from that. Yeah, so stay away from Carolina. Maybe Geno Smith. Let me look at Seattle here. Oh, he just went off the board. That's no bueno. But we're going to take a wide receiver, James Washington, in the 18th round. Okay, so that'll stack with Dak. Maybe if it loads. There we go. So James Washington there. Yes, he does have a bye week 9, but I've got 4 there. And then I'm going to probably take Quez Watkins as a spike week option. I don't know if Watkins shows up here. Yeah, Quez Watkins does. He has a 3% and 4% win rates, respectively, over the last 3 and 1 years. He probably won't be making the best ball lineups at all, but at least it's a late season correlation. And the Philadelphia Eagles wide receivers, as I mentioned, 7th. So it's possible that there's a spike week opportunity for Quez Watkins, despite not having much of a history. You just know that's going to be a correlation that I'm wanting to hit on. Same with James Washington. So, yeah, getting some Dallas and getting some Philly in there as well will be nice. Okay, and I've got Pickett, Pickens, and Johnson. Yeah, I'm happy how this team is turning out. I've got enough depth here. I have a 3-5-8-2 build. I think I'm going to stick with my 5 running backs. I don't think there's a quarterback that I'm particularly interested in at this point. Like Sam Howell going off for Washington in the 18th round over a Matt Corral. I don't understand that unless it's a Jameis Winston. I still don't understand the Sam Howell pick. Carson Wentz is not going to get benched for Sam Howell, at least in the first half of the season. And if he's getting benched, like the rest of your team is in a lot of trouble. So, yeah, looking at the picks after Sam Howell, Hayden Hurst, and then Brian Robinson. What to do with that last pick? What to do? Let's see who is still available. James White, Gaskin, Darrell Williams, Trey Sermon, Zach Moss. Are there any obvious plays here that shouldn't be ignored? Kenyon Drake. Ooh, that's a nice pick. I might take Kenyon Drake late. He had a 9% target share for the Vegas Raiders last season. And Cedric Wilson is there. My Keyshawn Vaughn is drawing dead because of Rachaad White, but nevertheless, Quintez Cephas is a forgotten Detroit Lion. Let's look at where the Detroit Lions wide receivers are. They're 9th. Quintez Cephas is like a forgotten wide receiver. He might be playing the wide receiver 3 role for the Lions. Maybe I add him. Quintez Cephas, the ever beloved Quintez Cephas. See if he is ranked at all. No, I don't see him in my top 240 of drafts, but that's okay. take some late correlation. And probably the Lions like to play in domes near the end of the season. Okay. And we're going to go Quez Watkins here with the 19th pick. Make the pick. Refresh. Stack him with Jalen Hurts. I'm just looking good. I'm happy. We've got Antonio Gibson, Travis Etienne, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, and Jamal Williams late in this draft. Adam Troutman goes off after Quez Watkins. He's a third tight end. With getting Hockenson and Goddard, I don't understand why you would want a third tight end. Unless there's a bye week issue that particular player is having, which I still don't understand why you would keep that in mind. Waller and Schultz don't have, or Hockenson and Goddard don't have those bye week overlaps. After Troutman, Trey Sermon goes off the board. I'm not a fan of Trey Sermon given the third round draft capital of the running back San Francisco selected, in addition to Elijah Mitchell being the guy and Jeff Wilson still being there. I think Trey Sermon is drawing dead. Unfortunately, I was hopeful, but I didn't get too many Trey Sermon values just because either I was picking near the beginning or near the end of drafts. I was not getting the middle of that first round where Trey Sermon was sometimes going last season. Okay, so going into this last round, I've got a 3-5-9-2 build. It boggles my mind that Baker Mayfield hasn't been picked yet. I don't know where Baker Mayfield's going to go, but I doubt he's going to sit out the season. There's going to be some team who needs quarterback, and they're going to reach out for Baker Mayfield. They're going to talk themselves into Baker Mayfield. Baker's not a bad quarterback. It's just that the Browns wanted to move off of him and upgrade with Deshaun Watson. They did it in a shady way. It is what it is. And Baker Mayfield, I think, deserves better. He's not going to play for the Cleveland Browns ever again. That was a bridge that was burnt. I doubt he'll ever come back to Cleveland except in another team's uniform. After Trey Sermon off the board, Kendrick Bourne, Antoine Wesley, Tyquan Thornton, second round pick, Tyquan Thornton for the New England Patriots. Sterling Shepard at the 1911. And then we're entering now the last round of this best ball super flex tournament, brought to you by Full Time Fantasy and presented here on the Best Bell Fantasy Football YouTube channel. I'm Bradley Stalder. If you like the content, make sure you give it a follow and like, subscribe it on YouTube, 5 stars on the Apple Podcasts. I appreciate all of the support. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing, bring out and pump out free content for you. It's a lot of fun for me, but also it'll make you a better fantasy player and it'll make me a better fantasy player as we continue to go throughout this off season. A few notes and updates as we're progressing through. I will be out of town for a wedding this coming weekend, so there may be spotty opportunities for me to be pumping out content, but because I will be out of state, there may be some best ball drafts, and I will try to do one live while I'm in Chicago, but I may not be able to. I will be posting a lot of Best Ball Mania slow draft teams that I'll be now allowed to do outside of the state of Michigan, and hopefully Underdog Fantasy will be able to come back to Michigan here shortly so I can do some live drafts and the Best Ball Mania 3 and the puppies and all of those others. Love drafting on Underdog, but also especially here on the FFWC's Full-Time Fantasy Superflex Bowl. This has been a tremendous amount of fun. I'm up here in just a couple picks, and a late round stab on Baker Mayfield might not be a bad pick. Don't know where he's going to land, but it's a wild shot. And who knows? Maybe it's, subbing in for one of my other quarterbacks who have good matchups. I think Baker Mayfield deserves to still be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And there's not really strong stacking players. I'm just going to give one more check through. Yeah, nothing's really standing out to me here. Nothing's outstanding. So we're going to go with Baker Mayfield. Oh, I guess he was taken already. Cedric Wilson is a consideration. Quintez Cephas also. I think what it's going to come down to is Miami versus Detroit wide receivers. Detroit 9th, Miami 8th. So I'm going to go with Miami. Cedric Wilson is my pick. The last, I've drafted 10 wide receivers. And that ends my draft. So I have a 3-5-10-2 build. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Antonio Gibson, Melvin Gordon, Jamal Williams, Kareem Hunt, Travis Etienne, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Boyd, A.J. Brown, Marvin Jones, Van Jefferson, Cedric Wilson, Quez Watkins, James Washington, George Pickens, and then my tight ends, Dalton Schultz and Darren Waller. This has been a tremendous amount of fun drafting on the FFWC's, the Full-Time Fantasy Super Flex Bowl here on May 20th, the 9 p.m. Eastern draft. Lots of fun, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of talk about all of the teams here come on Twitter. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. I'll be tweeting out the board. I'll also be posting the video for this YouTube. Give a like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate all the support that you've given. Check out the podcast as well on wherever you want to listen to your podcasts. And finishing out the 20th round, we see Cameron Brate, Ricky Seals-Jones, Matt Corral, Tyler Conklin, Brian Edwards, Baker Mayfield, Julio Jones, Cedric Wilson, Randall Cobb, Kennedy Brooks, the running back, undrafted free agent in Philadelphia. And with the 2 final picks, we're waiting and seeing. Oh, man, I was teeing that up so well. And then the anticlimactic line here for SFB4 and my boy RJ2. They've got our last picks. I don't hate the Randall Cobb here in the last round. So good job, always smooth. I like that pick. And Velus Jones for Chicago. That's not a bad pick given the wide receiver 6 rating for during the fantasy playoffs. And my boy RJ is going to be the last pick. Who's going to be Mr. Irrelevant in this Superflex draft? I have no clue. Maybe Malik Willis. Also, James White could be there. Darrell Williams could be there. Marcus Callaway, Braxton Berrios. Tight ends. Jonnu Smith is still there. Dan Arnold. OJ Howard. CJ Uzoma. Mo Alley Cox is still there. That's surprising. But all right. The draft ends and it is going to be refreshed. Foster Moreau, Las Vegas Raiders. And with that, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for listening to episode 11 of the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, give the thumbs up, all the love and retweets on Twitter. You can follow me at FFStalder. And until next time, good luck in the best ball streets.